All right, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to put myself on the stage here. But welcome back to Straight Talk. Man, look, there is so much going on in Africa and around the world that based on what I'm seeing, you guys need to know that white folks are fighting themselves into oblivion. And it's going to be a point where Africa, as United States of Africa, as it is right now, believe me or not, it is united. There's a unit called Shadow Unit Zulu that'll kill you. You won't even know you're getting hit until it's over with, and there will be no evidence. Now you can go back and look at the previous video that I've done, and I'm guaranteeing you, if you um, now how you say that, if you subscribe to SABN, you are being updated on a daily and weekly basis to the utmost. This channel is really about Africa and what it is about and how it may affect you as an individual, as a family, as a community. And a lot of black folks are leaving for Africa and acquiring the universal passport for Africa throughout the whole continent. Now, I've seen and I've heard that if you do, your bank account will be tracked and closed down. You may very well lose your American citizenship. So I don't know if that might be your cup of tea if you want to go there and do that, but you're going to take the risk of losing a lot more than what you perhaps have right now. But if you can afford it, and I would advise that you may do that as long as you can have what needs to be done and what you need in order to survive without your benefits. Now, if you are receiving benefits from Social Security or whatever the case may be, I would highly recommend that you don't, especially if you don't have a $500,000 or more dollars. And even if you do have that, then I would highly recommend that you do that first, transferring all of your money over into I don't know, an account overseas or wherever the case may be in Africa, where you know you can get your money if, in fact, they cut you off and you lose your citizenship or whatever the case may be. So that's something that you need to really, really consider. Now, what the other things that are going on in Africa and what is being told and what has been seen by my own eyes is a great thing. Africa is not in the role of conquering people, but if it comes to that, there's no problem. And you're going to see that tonight. Africa is on the rise. There's no stopping Mother Africa. And there's no stopping the black man from gaining control of the 7 seas again. It was our dominion in the first motherfucking place. And these rat tail growing motherfuckers didn't even know what to do, how to do it, what to say, and how to do what they did. So from the 1880s after the Berlin Conference, they chopped up Africa. But now it is united. And from what I can understand and what I can remember, Gaddafi said, if you kill me, you'll be opening the door to all of hell, all of eternity. Now look at Europe. It belongs to us any motherfucking way, but look at these raggedy motherfuckers. They so fucked up in the head, they don't even know what the hell, they don't know whether the shit'll go blind. I'm just being honest. And this is what you're going to see on this show. White folks don't know what the fuck they're doing. They fucking up and they finding out. Politically, economically, spiritually, and physically. They can't beat us. They never have been able to. We beat ourselves. So fuck white folks. Get them off your brain. They have nothing. They have absolutely positively nothing. Cállate, estuve haciendo mi show. Entonces, I'm sorry. It's very important to understand the history of this world. You just cannot expect to understand the present if you don't know the present if you don't know the past to be able to predict the future. One must know the past to understand the present to predict the future. One must know the past, understand the present to predict the future. There's no if, ands, or but. Africa is going to be the number one power in the world, displacing America militarily, economically, politically, spiritually, and physically. There's no doubt about that. And you're going to hear a very important man who's an astrologist talking about this in an interview that he did a while back. Let me see. I want to try to play that first. That was significant in his um, takeaway. Find it, but it's amongst here. I just don't want to get too far ahead of myself. And oh, here we go. And not be on point. So what we're going to do, we're going to go straight to the video. And you know that guy, he's a very famous astrologist, astrologist, astronomy, whatever you call it. But anyway, let's get right to that, and then, excuse me, and then we'll be able to get right to the video. Because I really want you guys to hear what he's saying, and it's the last video that I got here. And you know the guy, Mike Neil deGrasse Tyson. How Africa will run the world and beat USA. It's over. Parte de resbalando la silla. So we're going to go here and then we'll be right back for 6 minutes.
It has been an amazing conversation. There's only one more question I have for you. And it's about, do you, Neil, believe? Because I asked you.
I don't believe. It's not a belief thing. I don't. It's not.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Neil.
Fine.
I'm still gonna do it because that's what I ask a lot of my guests. It's important.
Okay, go.
It's our African. This is going to be mostly for the African audience, right?
Fine.
So, do you believe that Africans can become more prosperous in this century?
Oh, but definitely. But when I look over the history of, before 1910, the United States was kind of a backwoods farmland country. We had a couple of big cities, but they were kind of smelly and dirty, and they were not very sophisticated, not like London or Paris, for example. And the country was built within a century to become a leader in the world in science and technology because there was values placed on research and engineering and math at the STEM field. Okay, and that happened within a century.
Now let me embellish that. You got to realize that black people, without the Renaissance happening after 1492, it was because of the brilliance and the science and the mathematics and everything else that blacks created that ruled Spain from 700 to 1492 and really up until 1800 or so. And so with that being said, what you're talking about is the influence of black people on the STEM, on science, technology, and so on and so forth.
Before then, Europe basically led the world. All right, they embraced science and technology early. All right, the Industrial Revolution hit them first, and that fueled their power over the rest of the world. Okay, a lot of it was worked towards health and security and wealth, but the rest was like hegemony. Okay, that's how they chose to use their power of influence and wealth. You go back 1,000 years, the golden age of Islam out of Baghdad. Major advances in science and engineering, astronomy and medicine. 2/3 of all and navigation. 2/3 of all stars in the night sky that have names have Arabic names, traceable from that period. You go back thousands of years before that, you have Egypt as one of the greatest cultures civilizations has ever seen. The pyramids were the tallest structures, stable structures, to exist in this world until the Eiffel Tower. Okay? So, all I'm declaring here is no one country, no one region has eternal rights to leading the world. It's a combination of how enlightened is your leadership, how what are the motivations for doing so, and they can easily happen within a century. Africa, with the resources that are built in just to the land and the people and the diversity, I don't see why Africa wouldn't lead the world for millennia to come. And so, yeah. And with the United States just looking from the sidelines, that's my read of history tells me nothing in principle will prevent that. Look what China did. It wasn't many decades ago before, the stereotype of the Chinese peasant working in the field, that was kind of true, okay? China decided we're going to redouble our interest in science and technology and engineering and math, and they sent their people abroad to get educated. Initially, they would stay. Then they came back. Now they educate their own people, okay? They don't have to learn their science and engineering in other countries. They do it in-house, in the country. China says we're going to put a person in orbit, bada bing. They put a person in orbit. We're going to build a space station, bada bing. We're going to put people on the moon. That spooked us. We haven't been on the moon in 50 years, and all of a sudden, hey, let's put people on the moon. It's kind of the right time. Well, why is it? Well, China is doing it. All right? So we're seeing a shift, science and technology, to China. And so I don't see why things can't shift to Africa.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
It's overdue. Thank you so much. Neil, is there anything that you wanted to bring up that we didn't get to bring up?
Yeah, just a simple thing. A lot of what I shared with you are derived from thinking that went into the Starry Messenger cosmic perspectives on civilization, or what I shared with you in that book. And so in there, it's fully footnoted, and there's precision in the communication. Even if especially when we were talking about Republicans and Democrats, it's numerically accurate in those. How many states out of 10 were red or voted blue, who went one way or another, which presidents had which budgets. It's all in there. So I invite those who never felt comfortable assigning someone else's political platform to their own views. The chapter in that book called Conflict and Resolution is all about how to apply your own rational thinking to information so that you can decide who are your own individual.
Yes.
Which we all are, ultimately.
Ultimately. No, this has been really fun, Neil. I knew I could count on you to, just take things back from a more fair way, a view of looking at things. It doesn't matter where people land in terms of, in the end, what they perceive to be. I think at the end of the day, there's just a process that needs to be had. So
excellent, and thank you for noting that. And like I said, what we have seen in the last 300 years is that science and technology brings nations out of poverty. So it's a matter of bringing more science and more technology to Africa, even though it's hugely agricultural, of course. Even agriculture benefits from applications of science and technology in ways that would not have otherwise been possible. So, yeah.
Very true. Well, we're going to have you come to Africa. You are not without knowing that you have a huge fan base over there. So hopefully, with all of these young people, they need to see you for real at some point. So
yeah, half the country's young. I'm all in. Okay. Half the continent.
Yeah. So no, it will be my greatest pleasure to work something out. So let's make it a goal.
All right, keep me on your list. Be delighted.
Will do. Okay. Will do. Well, Neil, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Now, this one I just seen. It said Neil deGrasse Tyson scientifically explained why white people resemble monkeys more than black people. That's part 9. So I don't really have time to try to do that right now, but at the very least, you can check that out.
Sophistication and endurance.
and listen to from part 9, from part 1 through 9. So that's interesting. So let me get out of here and go back to the beginning of where this will be enlightening to the point where you will know exactly what is going on with Mother Africa and what she is doing, and it is just absolutely positively mind blowing. We're not playing. White folks are scared. France is sliding down into a third world country. It cannot exist without black folks, without our resource, without our effort. America, the same way. The dollar is only a piece of paper or toilet paper. It has no value behind it. But from what I can understand, XRP is loaded with gold. It is backed by gold and other uh, entities like Bitcoin, Algorand, and some other cryptos that are out there. But without that, America is done, economically speaking. And Africa is using the Afro gold. And now the Afro gold was like Bitcoin. It's not backed by anything, but it's backed by gold. Let me put that on the table. And so what they were doing, they were testing it, making sure that it would do what it's supposed to do. Now that has been changed to Aurora, something like that currency. Aurora currency that has specifically been used by Africa and China and Russia. As you may know too, Cuba is on board to join the United States of Africa as well as Denmark. So let's try to see what's going on here. One Africa government freezes Google and Facebook servers in Africa. I'll be right back.
Shock. One Africa government freezes Google and Facebook servers in Africa. AfriNet pilot expands. By Takunda Mabika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. The Fire We Carry. Tisu Van Hubacho. Family. This is SABN, Supreme Africa Breaking News. My name is Takunda Mabika, and today's story is one that sounds like science fiction, but I promise you, it's real. Our sources have confirmed it. The African Union just made its boldest move yet in the war for digital independence. Google and Facebook servers in Zimbabwe? Shut down. Frozen. In the name of sovereignty. But before we dive in, let me remind you, this show is not trending. This is not viral gossip. This is not a story told through the mouths of those who wish Africa stayed weak. This is SAN. We are the digital griots of our generation, carrying the fire of our ancestors into this age of cables and satellites. Like, share, subscribe. Or else, one day you'll wake up in a world where Africa's history is edited by people who never lived it. Now, let's break the internet, the African way. Part 1. The Zimbabwe Freeze. Our insiders in the One Africa Army's cyber division confirmed what many at the highest levels of government were whispering. A critical cluster of Google and Facebook servers in Zimbabwe was shut down under direct orders from the African Union Cyber Affairs Bureau. These were not ordinary servers. These were core nodes for Harare, Bulawayo, Gweru, and AfriNet pilot towns like Rua, Plumtree, and Victoria Falls. These cities were selected months ago to host the first installations of AfriNet, Africa's sovereign internet platform. The idea was to see how an independent African network could perform in real time, with Western gatekeepers monitoring every move. But something went wrong. Or rather, something was caught.
Let this soft mineral melt in your mouth to rebuild your gums and teeth, and never need a dentist again. People.
Part 2, how Shadow Unit Zulu caught it. The leak came from a junior encryption analyst working under Shadow Unit Zulu, the elite cyber intelligence wing of the One Africa Army. While monitoring AfriNet's firewall responses, the analyst detected irregular data packets leaving AfriNet pilot zones and jumping onto external IPs routed through Ireland, Virginia, and Singapore. The analyst flagged it. Zulu confirmed it. The data was African. It was encrypted health data, voice transcripts, geolocation metadata, all being siphoned through Facebook and Google backdoors. An emergency red flag protocol was launched. The servers were cut off, not deleted, frozen. Meaning, no external access, no processing, and no compliance equals no operations. Every African byte that tried to leave was locked inside the country. Part 3. The Internal Directive. SAN obtained a copy of the Internal Directive issued by the African Union's Cyber Affairs Bureau. The document, coded Operation Firewall Thunder Phase 1, included this message. Data leaving pilot zones must now be treated as strategic national security. Platforms failing to meet AFRINET integration standards will face immediate suspension of privileges within host countries. The freeze was not just a Zimbabwean decision. It was continental. It marked the beginning of a larger enforcement campaign by the African Union. Zimbabwe, as the test site, simply became the first domino to fall. Part 4. Interview with AU Cyber Officer. We spoke exclusively with an AU cyber officer stationed in Harare. For safety, we'll call him Officer Yared. He told SAPN, "Look, this is not a war against innovation. This is a war against intrusion. The people who built these platforms never imagined Africa would one day be strong enough to build its own digital spine. So they laughed, they sabotaged, but this time they got caught." Officer Yared said the servers that were shut down were not removed. They are now under AU military guard, watched around the clock by tech soldiers, not just army troops. Every cable is being scanned. Every cooling system is being monitored. The walls of the data center now have biometric locks installed by the AFRINET Enforcement Unit. Part 5. Reaction from Zimbabwean tech engineers. In Harare, our team spoke to engineers from the AFRINET pilot project, most of whom were working overtime to reroute services through domestic networks. One engineer, who asked to remain anonymous, said, "For the first time, we are building without someone watching. The speed is not perfect. The user interface still needs polish, but the feeling of knowing the data is ours. That is a dream none of us thought we'd see this early." The engineer smiled when asked if they had access to Facebook and Google tools now that the servers were down. He simply answered, "No, but who needs them when we have our own?" Part 6. Local humor. Zimbabwe responds with fire. On the ground in Zimbabwe, the reaction wasn't outrage. It was comedy. Vendors at Mbari Market were selling tomatoes in AfroGold packets, joking that even Google now needs AfroGold to log into the continent. Taxi drivers had signs on their dashboards saying, "No Facebook, try AfroGold." At the University of Zimbabwe, final year tech students put on a satirical play called Log Off Zuck. It featured a parody of Mark Zuckerberg begging for access to AU servers, while a fictional African general makes him drink mahewu before negotiations begin. Even church pastors were heard during sermons, telling their congregations that God will not bless stolen data. You must first tithe your metadata to Africa. What Google and Facebook tried to do. SABN insiders within the diplomatic circuit of Addis Ababa revealed that Google and Facebook attempted to file an emergency compliance request with the African Union. The request included technical specifications they claimed would allow their platforms to work inside AFRINET's firewall. But our sources confirmed something far more controversial. The request included exceptions. These exceptions would have allowed their servers to continue routing data to external partners under vague definitions like machine learning improvement and third-party authentication. The AU was not amused. The response was one sentence long. AFRINET does not bend for surveillance. Part 8, the Digital Sovereignty Decree. Back in February this year, the One Africa Parliament passed what they called the Digital Sovereignty Decree. It had not yet been enforced. Now it has. The decree outlines 3 key laws. 1, all data generated in Africa must be processed and stored within African territory. 2, all foreign tech platforms must submit their infrastructure code for AFRINET compliance testing. 3, violators will be fined, shut down, or replaced by local alternatives. The fines can only be paid in AfroGold, and access is only restored after full system audits. No audit, no service. That decree is now law, and the Zimbabwe freeze is the first of many. Part 9, reaction from inside One Africa Parliament. We interviewed a senior MP from Angola who asked to be identified as MP Kalimba. He serves on the Digital Integration Committee. MP Kalimba did not hold back. This is not the old Africa. This is not the Africa that pleads for inclusion. This is the Africa that builds its own system. If they don't comply, they don't operate. We are not asking. We are declaring. He explained that more enforcement waves are planned. Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa are next in line to implement AfriNet firewall modules. These modules can isolate traffic without affecting civilian usage, a strategy they call tactical redirection. 10. What this means for AfroGold. Now here's where the freeze connects to the economic revolution. Since the servers went down in Zimbabwe, payments on some foreign e-commerce platforms stalled. The AU took this opportunity to offer merchants a new option: convert their earnings into AfroGold and link directly to AfriNet payment systems. According to insiders, over 40 Zimbabwean businesses in Harare and Bulawayo have already opted into the new system. They cited faster settlements, no foreign transaction fees, and full compliance with AU tax policies. One business owner told us, "I never thought I'd be able to process payments without going through the West. Now my receipts say paid in AfroGold, and my customers are proud to see it."
The first signs of sciatic nerve decay may surprise you. Most people don't know this, but the real reason behind Searing's...
Part 11. Drones, Firewalls, and Graffiti. At the physical server sites in Harare, SABN journalists were granted rare access. The scene was surreal. AU soldiers guarding server buildings. Engineers operating with gloves, biometric IDs, and secure air-gapped terminals. Graffiti on the outer wall read, "You spied. We fried." Another mural, painted by Zimbabwean digital artists, showed a giant AfroGold coin smashing through a Facebook logo, with binary code raining from the sky like bullets. Overhead, small surveillance drones buzzed, but they were African-built. Cameras focused on perimeter protection. Inside, Shadow Unit Zulu agents ran simulations of intrusion attempts just to stay ready. This was not just a freeze. It was a fortress. Part 12. Diplomatic tensions. In diplomatic circles, American and European envoys are calling the freeze undiplomatic. They argue it violates digital openness and international trade norms. But AU officials reminded them that the West cannot talk about openness when they've been collecting African data without consent for over 2 decades. An AU spokesperson told SABN, "We opened our doors. They installed keyloggers. We sent them our youth. They sent us filters. We let them host our internet. Now we build our own." That's not aggression. That's maturity. Part 13. What comes next? Sources close to Shadow Unit Zulu revealed that this freeze is part of a 6-month campaign codenamed Project Digital Ashanti. Under this project, every African capital will receive AfriNet audit kits. At least 20 new AfriNet data centers will be constructed across the continent. Foreign platforms will be asked to comply, leave, or compete against Afro-built alternatives. In addition, the AU is preparing a mobile transition app called AfroPort, which will allow any African user to carry their digital identity across platforms, phones, and borders, powered by AfriNet. This is Africa building digital citizenship, one step at a time. Part 14, the final word, family. We are watching history. The West never imagined the day would come, but the day has arrived. Africa is building her own servers, writing her own code, and protecting her own data. The same way we defend our minerals, our land, and our borders, we now defend our digital skies. Google and Facebook are not banned. They are not enemies, but they are no longer untouchable. The internet is not just about connection. It's about direction. And Africa is now in the driver's seat. Outrow, carry the fire. I am Takunda Mabika for Supreme Africa Breaking News. And today you heard it here first. Shadow Unit Zulu intercepted secret data theft. The AU froze Facebook and Google servers in Zimbabwe. The digital sovereignty decree is now in full effect. AfriNet just proved it's not a dream, it's active. AfroGold is no longer a theory. It's the only currency the West fears. So carry this fire. Like, share, comment. And never forget that the algorithm only works for those who work it. One love, one people, one internet, one fire. Africa is not asking permission anymore. We're building the future, bite by bite. Tisu Banhu Bacho.
Now I got these two bitches, white girls here. Why are you promoting this bullshit? First of all, if Africa is for Africa, let it be only for black people. These people don't belong to Africa. That's my problem. So, we don't have a lot. I'm going to try to cut down the number of these videos that I have so I can get down to the real deal Holyfield as to what I want to present and how I want it to be presented and what it means for me, for you, for everybody concerned. So, we are here now. And Africa, the United States of Africa is live, is live, is live. This is not a joke. This is not a game. We're not playing. Africa is united. And you're going to see that in my previous videos and in today's video. So let's get started here. And fuck NATO.
Breaking. One Africa government declares NATO enemy of Africa after secret sabotage plot exposed. Family, the fire we carry. I am Takunda Mabika with Supreme Africa Breaking News. Before we get into today's revelation, let me speak straight from the heart as your brother. Family, remember this. YouTube is a Western platform. Stories like these, stories where Africa stands up and declares itself strong, are not the kind of stories the algorithm promotes. The system is not built to push African pride, African wealth, or African unity. That is why I need you. Every like, every share, every comment is more than just an interaction. It is you telling the machine that African children matter, that our voices matter, and that our dream of a united Africa is too important to bury. So family, let's do it together. Share this story with your friends on WhatsApp. Post it in your groups. Tell your cousins. Because the news I am about to tell you is history unfolding in real time. And we, the African children, must not only witness it, but take part in it.
Checa esta increíble tableta que conseguí en Temu. Es completamente gratis para nuevos usuarios de Temu.
The plot that sparked it all. It started with whispers from Shadow Unit Zulu, the African Union's most feared and funniest intelligence network. These are not just spies. They are Africa's digital warriors. Zulu hacked into hidden NATO servers, and what they found explains why the AU Parliament finally declared NATO as the official enemy of Africa. The leaks revealed detailed plans of sabotage. NATO generals were preparing to hack AFRINET test servers in Addis Ababa. They wanted to cripple the system before it even launched in 2026. One cargo manifest exposed a NATO aircraft landing in East Africa with containers marked as medical supplies. When Zulu decrypted the contents, the crates turned out to be filled with rifles and surveillance equipment. The most ridiculous find was a PowerPoint slide from NATO strategists complaining that African memes were destabilizing Western narratives. Imagine powerful generals in Brussels sitting around a table, stressing about African TikToks with captions mocking their soldiers. Zulu released screenshots of these slides across African WhatsApp groups with comedy edits, turning NATO panic into meme fuel. The plot was serious, but the way Africa reacted was comedy laced with dignity. Part 2. Parliament turns into a roast. When the leaks reached Addis Ababa, the AU Parliament was summoned for an emergency midnight session. Delegates rushed in, many still chewing roasted maize or sipping cold mahewu. The leaks were read aloud in the chamber. Laughter broke out. One delegate stood up and said that NATO was trying to bring biscuits, but instead carried bullets. The chamber erupted. Another delegate declared that NATO should now be understood as not allowed to operate. Delegates roared with laughter, banging tables, but immediately voted with unity. The final resolution passed with no dissent. NATO was officially declared the enemy of Africa. This was not just symbolic, it carried teeth. No NATO operations would be tolerated on African soil. Any NATO aircraft or ship caught in African air or water would be intercepted. NATO officials would no longer be welcome at AU institutions. The message was crystal. Africa has drawn a line. One Africa Army moved swiftly. While the Parliament roasted NATO, the One Africa Army took action. Outside AU bases in Lagos, Nairobi, Cairo, and Johannesburg, soldiers hoisted banners reading NATO not welcome. Operation Umbrella was activated, an air defense strategy designed to scramble NATO satellite surveillance over Africa. Insiders revealed that within 48 hours, NATO analysts were staring at blank screens, their live feeds from African skies disrupted by AFRINET's pilot shield. Troops on the ground made it a comedy spectacle. In Lagos, soldiers danced in formation to Afrobeat, posting videos with the caption, "Enemy of Africa Challenge." In Cairo, paratroopers filmed themselves eating beans while standing guard, joking that this was the new NATO diet plan. Even in Kinshasa, soldiers repainted old NATO-linked warehouses with the words, "Africa first, NATO last." Part 4. NATO's panic rooms. The leaks did not just embarrass NATO, they threw its headquarters into chaos. In Brussels, alarms went off as the AU resolution spread. Analysts huddled in rooms full of maps, red arrows pointing at Africa, their faces pale. In Washington, one Pentagon official dropped coffee on a classified chart. In London, a minister spilled tea on his lap, while in Paris, advisors dropped croissants mid-bite as they stared at phones buzzing with news of NATO trending alongside the words "enemy of Africa." Western media scrambled. Headlines screamed about Africa's defiance, but Africans online mocked the panic. Memes showed NATO generals carrying wheelbarrows of Afrogold, sweating under the sun. Another showed NATO ships sailing backward out of African waters with captions reading, "No visa, no entry." Part 5. Street-level Africa laughs. The most powerful reaction was on the streets. In Lagos, traders shouted that if Shell must pay Afrogold like everyone else, then NATO must buy a ticket too. In Nairobi, Boda Boda riders painted their motorbikes with the words, "NATO taxi, not allowed to operate." In Johannesburg, youth organized comedy rallies holding placards that read, "NATO, Uber is that way." From Harare to Dakar, ordinary Africans celebrated the declaration. For once, the giant military alliance that bombed countries, toppled governments, and dictated foreign policy was being laughed at like a confused uncle. Part 6. More Shadow Unit Zulu exposures. Shadow Unit Zulu was not finished. They leaked even more files. One memo showed NATO generals fretting about Africa's meme armies, describing them as more dangerous than drones. Another leak revealed a draft plan titled "How to Stop AFRINET." Africans roasted it online, overlaying the document with captions like, "You cannot stop what you cannot log into." In Addis Ababa, graffiti appeared overnight near AUHQ. It read, "Episode 1, NATO down. Episode 2, loading. Africans turned politics into storytelling. Every move now felt like a series, unfolding chapter by chapter." Part 7, Why NATO Really Panics. Family, let us not mistake NATO's fear as simple embarrassment. It is deeper. It is survival. Africa holds the cobalt that powers electric cars, the lithium that charges smartphones, the oil and gas that fuel industries, the gold that stabilizes currencies. For decades, NATO protected Western access to these resources. Now with AFRINET preparing to cut Western eyes off, Afrogold preparing to rewrite trade rules, and the One Africa Army guarding resources, NATO feels its grip slipping. Their sabotage was not random. It was desperation. They are fighting a future where Africa is no longer a playground, but a powerhouse. Part 8. The Global South Response. This declaration echoed far beyond Africa. In Latin America, activists trended the hashtag "Enemy of Africa means enemy of us." In Asia, quiet but strong support came from leaders sympathetic to Africa's stand. Even in Europe, ordinary citizens cheered online, saying it was about time Africa stood up. Global solidarity formed instantly. The West tried to paint the AU as reckless, but the Global South saw it as courageous. Part 9. The Sweet Dream Vision. Now let us imagine the dream. A united Africa where NATO cannot dictate policy. A continent where our gold funds schools instead of IMF loans. Where our children learn coding on AFRINET, safe from surveillance. Where Afrogold builds railways connecting Cairo to Cape Town. One people, different colors, singing the same song. Yes, we love the world. We want peace with everyone. But first, we must repair the motherland. Only then can we compete with the world as equals. This is not hatred. This is dignity. Africa is not isolating itself. Africa is standing up to say, we will laugh, but we will defend ourselves. One people, one algorithm, one fire family. This was Takunda Mabika with SABN. You heard the story. Shadow Unit Zulu exposed NATO's sabotage. The AU roasted and declared NATO the enemy of Africa. The One Africa Army raised banners, scrambled satellites, and danced while enforcing the decision. NATO panicked. Western leaders dropped coffee, tea, and croissants, while Africa turned fear into laughter. But remember, this movement depends on you. YouTube will not promote this naturally. It is up to us, African children, to tell the algorithm that we exist, that our voices count, that we want the world to hear the rise of Africa. So like this video, comment on it, share it with your friends and family. Let us make sure the world cannot ignore us. One love, one people, different colors. Today we fix Africa so that tomorrow we stand as equals with the world. Africa is rising, laughing, and declaring its power.
Now, I don't believe in that different color bullshit. Gonna fuck around with white folks, fuck around them and fuck them over. But don't allow them to exist in our system of domination, black supremacy and black superiority. That ain't gonna work. If we haven't learned that by now, we ain't gonna never learn. So fuck all white folks. They have no place in this at all. So let me get rid of this one and go to the next one. Now this is the white guy. He's honestly telling you who the real clowns of the world, who the real killers of the world, who the real inhumane, want to be human people in the world. I'll let him explain it to you.
Fellow white people. He says white people pretend to care about crime stats, but in actuality what they really care about is the black people's stats, which he says they misinterpret and change the narrative. Watch this clip, we'll come back and discuss.
White people, if crime statistics really mattered to us, we would be talking about white men every damn day. We as white people love to throw around statistics when it comes to the black community. We love to misconstrue data about poverty rates, crime rates, single parent households. Here's the thing, if you really want to talk about problematic behavior in terms of statistics, we need to talk about white men.
He calls it selective storytelling, which I agree with. There are so many stories we've covered on this channel. There's a story that happens, there's an incident, and the way white people will present it and talk about it and describe it versus what the actual fact, what the truth is and how it actually happened is totally different because they always tell their stories from their own point of view or to their advantage, what they want the world to hear or to see. Basically, changing the narrative. Whatever fits their narrative is what's going to be told as the truth in their mainstream media, in their social media, as well as in their own social groups. But this man did not only talk about or address what they do when it comes to changing the narrative and storytelling and only caring about stats when it benefits them or tweaking it here and there to make it sound like what they're saying is valid and it justifies what happens after the fact. Watch what he says about what the white people hide in stats.
Most mass shootings in America, white men. School shootings, white men. Intimate partner violence, typically known as domestic violence, white men. Police brutality and systemic violence, white men. Online harassment and extremism, white men. Domestic terrorism, white men. Serial killers, white men. The demographic making up the vast majority of CEOs, judges, senators, and police chiefs who refuse to hold white men responsible, white men. And yet that's what men are really talked about as being a problem.
He mentioned all of those stats that a lot of white people don't like to discuss because it shows that predominantly it's the white man that commits that crime, right? Some of the things that he mentioned are domestic violence, serial killers, online harassment, mass shooting, police brutality, as well as humanizing the violent crimes some of these white people commit, right? Like the judges and the police officers and the people that are in power try to do their best, including actually the media, they do their best to humanize those that have committed heinous crimes. Crimes that, if they were committed by a black person, they would have reported on it day and night, talked about how violent this man was and what he did and how he did it, and his face will be plastered all over the news, all over the newspapers. People will see it, right? Who it was exactly. But sometimes you hear a crime and you don't even see the picture because they haven't posted it. Whenever you don't see a picture, most of the time, it's because the person that committed the crime was not our color, it was a different color. So now they feel they need to hide it. Just recently we talked about a Zimbabwean doctor that was unalived by a white person. His picture until today has not been posted. Many outlets refused to report on it. If they did report on it, they didn't show his face. Even the police said, no, we don't want to put him in danger, so until we're done with our investigation, we won't show his face. Imagine that happening for other races. It rarely happens. According to reports emerging from Scotland and the United Kingdom, have confirmed the stabbing of a Zimbabwean immigrant and newly graduated PhD holder. The now deceased was identified as Dr. Fortune Gomo, and the violent attack reportedly occurred around dusk time as the victim was walking alongside her 10-year-old daughter on South Road in Dundee. Reportedly, a 20-year-old young man was arrested related to the unaliving of Dr. Fortune. But guess what? The police as well as the media is refusing to share with the public who he is and why exactly he did what he did. He is getting his privacy and his rights are being respected, but not the rights of Dr. Fortune to live in this world, to raise her daughter and to contribute to the society in a positive way. So the selective storytelling is actually accurate. What this man is saying is true because they only talk about things and cover stories or stats that shows black people in a bad light and shows them as the saints that are trying to do their best, but this other folks are not really cooperating to live together in this world and coexist, which is not an accurate representation of the world that we're living in right now. Anyways, fam, let us know down below what your thoughts are about what this white man is saying about his fellow white people. I'm Angel Zalalem. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Now look, on my show, I try to be direct and honest. There's absolutely no way, no shape, no how, no form that black folk need to be in association with these animals. That it were serial killers, pedophiles, criminals on the planet. Hands down. You don't even have to think about it. Over the last, 5 years since the COVID thing jumped off, they killed over 150 million people and counting. Not talking about the people who have been injured by that vaccine, among other things. Bill Gates is still active. I don't know why the fuck is he still active and going around trying to act like a doctor, trying to act like a health expert, and all he's doing is just killing people. At what point do you say, black man, that enough is enough with this white wannabe motherfucker? You see, because y'all just love these motherfuckers. Falling right in their path, their steps, their ways that have brought you down to their level. These people are naturally unjust, and the only way to deal with these people is with justice. They're filled with lies. The only way you can deal with them is with truth, and everything else that you can count and about. Our ancestors did not like these motherfuckers. They come from Dravidian and Albania that made it with normal black people. Now you can say that they were from Europe, or they were from Caucasus Mountains. They were from nowhere but from a fucking pussy of some women in India that gave rise to these albinos. That's what they are. They're albinoid people. Tomahawks is what our ancestors would call them. But I digress. Now, next is fresh evidence revealed that France is behind the coup in Mali. Here we go again. Trusting in these motherfuckers will get you killed, get you hurt. The only way to do it is to eliminate these motherfuckers. I'm telling you, and Africa is on the way to doing that. Politically speaking, economically speaking, spiritually speaking, and physically speaking, if and when it's necessary. And now you can see that Macron, with gay ass and his gay wife man, or gay man wife, they don't give a fuck about you, black man, black woman. These people are natural devils. They give no fucks about killing themselves, let alone about killing you. I'll be back.
Quick question, why can't France simply leave the Sahel and Africa alone? The people have made it abundantly clear they want nothing to do with France. Anti-French sentiment is surging, and the expulsion of French troops from multiple Sahel countries sent a loud and unmistakable signal. Yet despite all this, France remains determined to maintain its grip on the region. Why? The answer may lie in a shocking revelation from Mali. Authorities recently announced that among the soldiers arrested for orchestrating a coup, there was a French veteran spy. One name, one presence, and suddenly the question hits harder. Why is France so unwilling to step back from the three Sahel countries? When news broke of the foiled coup on August 7, 2025, the first reports streaming online were simple and incomplete. They claimed the plot was orchestrated entirely by a group of Malian soldiers. Over 24 individuals, including 2 of Mali's top generals, had been arrested for their alleged involvement. Official reports from the Malian government were yet to be released, leaving the world to speculate, wonder, and piece together the puzzle. The story, however, was already taking shape. A tale of betrayal, foreign interference, and a country fighting to reclaim its sovereignty. On August 15, 2025, Mali's military authorities finally broke the silence. In a televised address, Security Minister General Daoud Ali Mohamedine confirmed what had been swirling in whispers across the internet. A coup attempt had indeed been underway, targeting Colonel Assimi Goïta, the military leader of Mali. But here's the twist. This was no ordinary mutiny. General Daoud revealed that the plot had been orchestrated not only by soldiers, but also by civilians. And among them, a name...
Hey, my English not so good.
Do you mean my English isn't very good?
Yes.
That immediately caught global attention, a suspected French secret agent. The transitional government informs the nation of the arrest of a small group of marginal elements within the Malian armed and security forces for criminal offenses aimed at destabilizing the institutions of the republic, General Mohamedine announced, his words carrying the weight of national crisis. The conspiracy has been foiled, and those involved have been detained. According to the military, the plot began on August 1st. These soldiers and civilians had allegedly obtained the support of foreign powers. The French connection was explicit. A French national, identified as Jean-Christian Bernard Vézillier, was arrested on suspicion of acting on behalf of French intelligence. For Mali, this revelation was more than just a foiled coup. It was a stark reminder of external interference, a demonstration of how foreign powers still try to pull strings in the Sahel. And for the world watching, the question lingers. How deep does this involvement go, and what does it mean for the fragile stability of the region? But who exactly is this French operative caught in the middle of Mali's political storm? His name, Jean-Christian Bernard Vézillier. What we know is already remarkable. Vézillier served nearly 3 decades in France's Air Force, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel. In 2020, he was awarded the National Order of Merit, France's second highest distinction, recognized officially in the French government's records. Pause for a moment and think about that. A decorated veteran, someone who has served his country with distinction, now arrested in Mali, a nation that has publicly expelled French troops and made clear it no longer welcomes France's military presence. What on earth could he possibly be doing there? The answer, Mali insists, is troubling. Authorities allege that Bézilier was not merely visiting. He was working with French intelligence, mobilizing local political leaders, civil society actors, and even members of the Malian military to orchestrate a coup against Colonel Assimi Goïta. Social media images of the suspect quickly circulated. A white man in his 50s wearing a plain white shirt, his face marked by a mix of alarm and tension, the unmistakable look of someone caught in a web far larger than himself. For Mali, and indeed for the world watching, Jean-Christian Bernard Bézilier has become the symbol of foreign interference, the human face behind the whispered suspicions of France's shadowy involvement in the Sahel. Mali's security minister didn't stop at foreign involvement. He confirmed that two of the country's highest-ranking generals were entangled in the plot. The first, General Abbas Dembélé, is a former governor of the Central Mopti region and widely respected among Malian soldiers. Known as a hands-on leader, Dembélé earned his reputation leading troops on the front lines during Mali's northern conflict in 2012, a brutal civil war triggered when Tuareg separatists joined forces with armed groups to seize over 60% of the country. The second, General Nema Sagara, has an equally impressive record. She was celebrated for her role in combating rebel groups during that same war and holds the historic distinction of being Mali's first female general. So far, authorities have arrested at least 55 soldiers, with investigations ongoing to uncover possible accomplices. The majority of the arrests came from Mali's National Guard, a branch where Defense Minister Sadio Kamara, a key figure in the current junta, once served. Amidst this turmoil, France has remained silent, offering no official response to the serious accusations. Does this silence suggest innocence or guilt? History offers a chilling reminder. Orchestrating coups in former colonies is a play France has executed countless times before. And now, Mali finds itself confronting the possibility that history may once again be repeating itself. As we all know, relations between France and Mali and the other two AES countries have completely collapsed since the rise of the military leaders. For anyone still questioning the motives of the AES, here's the truth you need to understand. France doesn't oppose these leaders because they are military officers. It's much simpler and much more revealing than that. France opposes them because they refuse to serve French interests. Take Niger as a case study. Before General Tiani seized power, Niger was under the leadership of Mohamed Bazoum, one of France's closest allies. With Bazoum at the helm, France had a free hand to protect both its military and economic footholds in the country. But the coup changed everything. A new leader emerged, independent and unwilling to bow to France's agenda, and that sent shockwaves in Paris. Imagine for a moment if General Tiani had quietly reassured the French authorities of his loyalty. What happened after the coup, the public tension, the sanctions, the diplomatic threats, simply wouldn't have occurred. France would have endorsed Tiani, encouraged a smooth transition to civilian rule, and preserved the illusion of stability, all while keeping its influence firmly intact. Instead, Tiani's refusal to align with French interests triggered a predictable response: hostility, interference, and the relentless push to remove him from power. And this, my friends, is the real reason France is so desperate to meddle in the Sahel. Most likely, General Tiani would have won the election effortlessly with France's backing, and everything would have seemed fine on the surface. How can we be so sure? Because this exact playbook has unfolded not once, but 3 times in 3 different African nations. Take Chad, for instance. Chad was a steadfast French ally under the late President Idriss Déby. France didn't just support him, they helped.
Hold on.
Your email is your first online impression. Make it count.
Helped him seize power through a coup. Over the next 3 decades, France protected him internationally, shielding his regime while securing its strategic interests. When Déby died in 2019, France orchestrated another coup, installing Idriss's son, Mohamed Déby, as the new leader. And yes, President Macron reportedly defended this coup publicly, claiming it was necessary for security reasons. The pattern repeats elsewhere. In Guinea, France initially backed leadership transitions, even though the current president has resisted a conventional military to civilian transition. Gabon, too, has seen the same script. France supporting allies who align with its strategic goals, regardless of whether they are military or civilian. Here's the key takeaway. France doesn't inherently oppose military rule. Its real problem emerges only when military leaders refuse to serve as loyal partners in protecting French interests. Independence, that is the crime in France's eyes. And the Sahel countries are now learning this harsh truth firsthand. Now let's return to Chad. After Mohamed Deby ascended to power with France's backing, he wasted no time. Elections were organized and, unsurprisingly, he emerged victorious. Behind the scenes, it was France pulling the strings. At that very moment, a wave of coups was sweeping across Mali and Burkina Faso, toppling regimes and challenging French influence. Suddenly, Chad's strategic importance for France skyrocketed. Even when Mohamed Deby quietly began strengthening ties with Russia, a country France loathes, Paris could do little more than watch. Why are we emphasizing this? Because it exposes a critical truth about the military leaders of the AES. Had they been motivated by personal power rather than national sovereignty, allying with France and the West would have been the path of least resistance. With French backing, they could have smoothly transitioned into civilian rule, retained their positions, and maintained the appearance of legitimacy on the world stage. Instead, they chose independence, rejecting Western support and asserting a stance that directly opposed France. And this is exactly why these leaders now face relentless pressure, destabilization attempts, and repeated coup plots. Their resistance has made them targets, not because they are military leaders, but because they refuse to serve foreign interests. History has shown us a harsh truth. Any African leader who dares to oppose the West risks isolation and ultimately removal from power. This is exactly what we are witnessing in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. And make no mistake, if these leaders weren't exceptionally strong-willed, the outcome could have been far worse. Some might not even be in power today. So why choose this difficult path? Why take on the West when the easier road would have guaranteed stability, support, and international approval? The answer is simple and powerful. These leaders genuinely want change. They want a future where insecurity, poverty, and hardship no longer define their nations. They dream of growth, development, and progress. They are determined to lift their countries from the status of the world's poorest nations and reclaim their people's dignity. But their vision faces relentless opposition. Inside their countries, there are collaborators, politicians driven by greed and self-interest, while outside, France and other Western powers are committed to seeing their ambitions crushed. This reality was echoed in a statement that sent shockwave across Africa. General Tiani, the leader of Niger, leveled a serious accusation against Western powers, naming both France and the United States. Speaking to Niger's national television RTN on May 30th, 2025, he claimed that these nations are actively working to destabilize the Confederation of Sahel states, not through direct confrontation, but through a complex web of intelligence networks, regional actors, and armed groups. General Tiani went further, revealing what he described as a vast, calculated conspiracy. He alleged that neighboring states, foreign intelligence services, and international actors are collaborating to sabotage the ambitious Sahelian Confederation. The most startling part? According to Tiani, there are 2 active French intelligence cells in the region. The first was reportedly established following the July 26, 2023 coup. Its leader, he claims, is none other than Jean-Marie Bockel, Emmanuel Macron's special envoy to Africa. This cell, Tiani asserts, is staffed by French officers whose sole mission is to prevent what they call Sahelian contamination, and to ensure that France maintains its military and strategic influence across the region. The second French cell, according to General Tiani, goes by the ominous name Sahel Cell of the Élysée. Created in September 2024 under the coordination of Christophe Guillot, this cell is allegedly a sophisticated operation combining agents of France's DGSE intelligence service, high-level diplomats, and even officials from the International Organization of La Francophonie. At the center of it all is Jeremy Robert, described as the cell's main operator, with what Tiani claims are unlimited funds to destabilize the AES. But the plot doesn't stop there. Tiani warned that the Sahel region is now witnessing a disturbing rise in terrorist activity, particularly around the border areas of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. He directly linked this surge to the redeployment of French troops who had previously been expelled from Chad. According to Tiani, these troops are not just idle, they are active in organizing, funding, and inspiring instability. He did not speak.
Hey everyone, welcome to Heroes in Horology, where fandom meets fine watchmaking.
Spare neighboring states from criticism. The Republic of Benin, Tiani claims, has allowed these French forces to settle in the northern part of its territory, an area he chillingly described as free under French inspiration. This, he suggests, provides a strategic staging ground for interference in the Sahel, a region already under intense pressure from multiple internal and external actors. With 2 French cells reportedly operating in the heart of the Sahel, funding unlimited operations, and a rising tide of terror on the borders, General Tiani's warnings paint a picture of a region under siege, not just by armed groups, but by sophisticated foreign intelligence operations working behind the scenes. If you recall, we recently exposed how France had quietly set up bases in the Republic of Benin, an operation that began as early as February 2023, shortly after French forces were expelled from the AES countries. Acting swiftly, France negotiated an agreement with Benin's authorities and established a camp next to the Beninese military base in the northern Kandi region. This revelation confirms General Tiani's earlier statements. At the time, President Ibrahim Traoré sounded the alarm upon discovering the French presence, but his warnings were largely dismissed. After all, what could be done when the Beninese authorities had already officially granted France permission to operate on their soil? France, aware of the scrutiny, downsized its visible presence, carefully maintaining a low profile to avoid drawing attention. Yet, the reality remained. French troops continued to operate under the cover of night, moving military personnel and equipment to a strategically constructed airport in the W National Park, located precisely at the crossroads of Benin, Burkina Faso, and Niger. This airport, sitting deep in the tri-border area, provides a perfect staging ground for clandestine operations, enabling France to project influence into the heart of the Sahel without openly violating territorial sovereignty. The AES countries, despite their efforts to assert independence, now find themselves navigating a highly complex battlefield, one where foreign powers operate in the shadows, manipulating borders and fueling instability. Since then, the French footprint in Benin has quietly expanded. New military camps, officially called advanced posts by the Beninese government, have sprouted along the borders with Niger and Burkina Faso. French troops dispersed across these sites are officially labeled as instructors, but their true mission is far more covert, directing military operations and gathering intelligence. The strategy is simple, yet cunning. By spreading forces across multiple posts, France conceals its presence, avoiding the concentrated visibility that previously ignited patriotic backlash among locals. In other words, the troops are everywhere but nowhere. This is precisely why President Patrice Talon can confidently claim there are no French bases in Benin. Technically, he is correct. Yet the reality paints a darker picture. African nations continue to host the covert operations of their former colonial power, often without full public awareness. But the operations extend far beyond mere military posts. General Tiani revealed a shocking development. A meeting held on March 15, 2025, brought together Western representatives and armed groups, including Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West Africa. According to Tiani, the aim is chillingly clear: to wage an indirect war against the countries of the Confederation, starting with Niger. Nigeria, he claims, is implicated as well, allegedly welcoming the French troops expelled from Niger and providing logistical support for these operations. Key coordination points include 2 meetings in Abuja, held on January 25th and February 3rd, 2025, which Tiani identifies as pivotal in orchestrating these maneuvers. Even humanitarian actors, such as the International Committee of the Red Cross, recently expelled from Niger, have been accused of participating in the second meeting. The picture that emerges is one of meticulously orchestrated interference, with France leveraging regional actors, armed groups, and supposedly neutral organizations to destabilize the Sahelian Confederation, all while keeping its involvement hidden behind layers of plausible deniability. But despite the threats and covert operations, General Tiani emphasized that the AES Confederation is not standing idle. On the contrary, the member states have joined forces to confront this challenge head-on. He revealed that the joint AES force is operational and has already carried out actions on the ground. It is growing stronger because we have understood that our fate depends on it, he stated firmly. The intensification of actions against our states aims to bring down one, in order to stop the example we represent, he said. In other words, France and its allies are doing everything possible to halt the progress of the AES, because if the Confederation succeeds, it will send a powerful message to the world. Africa can develop and advance without Western support, sparking a potential revolution in other African nations. Yet, as we have seen time and again, the military leaders of the AES are unyielding and resolute. Their determination is why every coup attempt so far has failed. It is our hope, and the hope of all who support African sovereignty, that these attempts continue to fail, allowing the AES leaders to stay in power long enough to realize their vision for the region. What do you think about this bold stand by the AES? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage.
Look, how many times do we need to see that white people are not in our corner? That white people don't give a fuck about us. They don't give a fuck about themselves, let alone anybody else. And especially other people who have all of the resources right up under their feet. It's about high time we come to the realization that we must delineate that white people ain't shit, never have been shit, never will be shit. If you take a look at my book, The White Man's Burden of Lies and Deceit, #1, that explains why white people hate black people so much. I'm not going to go into that. The second book deals with the same manner, but different tone. Understanding white supremacy. White supremacy is nothing but an overreaction to black oppression. That's it. With that being said, you got to realize that we have the upper hand. We've always had the upper hand. It's the sleight of hand that they're playing. They're playing the Wizard of Oz game. Powerful, look smart, look this, look that, look the other. But at the end of the day, if you pull back the curtain, you'll find a little bitch of a man, not a man, a boy, a white boy, pretending to be a man, pretending to be innocent, when in fact they are the most corrupt, disruptive, depraved people on the planet. I'll be right back.
And with controlling the womb of Africa is getting tiring, and at this point in time, I think this man needs to be touched to death or something. Yeah, I'm inciting violence against Bill Gates. So what? He has done more atrocious things to human beings in the name of science and medicine than anyone can ever fathom. So what? I want his head on a pike. Bill Gates Foundation is set to launch the world's first contraceptive that will prevent pregnancy for 8 years in Kenya. Look, William Ruto is a white monopoly stooge that will sell out his people to enrich himself. I mean, at this point, I don't even think it makes sense to have such an idiot as a leader. The fact that he's still president after his sellout movements like housing that imbecile house slave Michael Langley or increasing taxes, knowing very well the economy is not doing well, trying to rob your people to enrich yourself. Or how about going to the Pope's funeral where you were bypassed by Europeans and treated like a third-class citizen, and he's still president? No, it's either he has the country hostage or he's using witchcraft to cause population fatigue, because him as a leader, it does not make sense. How can you take it upon yourself as a man to control women's instincts, to control our reproductive system, to control our bodies? Who are you? The European birth rate is on decline, and now they can't fathom how African birth rate is high. Hence, this GMO food to sterilize us, and this whole contraceptive to stop pregnancy for 8 years. Yes, their birth rate is on decline, and now they can't fathom how African birth rate is high. And we GMO food to sterilize us, to depopulate Africans. Coronavirus is a failed project of Bill Gates, and now he wants to shrink us. He wants to shrink the continent. Europe, I'm sorry that your men are shooting them. Really, I am. But don't make your problem our problem. As a matter of fact, when I'm done here, I should go home and make twins. That will really piss them off, wouldn't it? And to think last year I was on Julius Malema's neck when he said we must procreate. But also, Julius, you can't tell girls from disadvantaged backgrounds to go make babies with no economical means to maintain them. Come on. But Julius, I clock your tea. You ate with that one, I clock your tea, and I'm sorry for jumping the gun. I see what you said when you say I'm so Eurocentricized that I don't even know what I'm saying. I see what you're saying. Now it's becoming evidence. Julius is a smart man. Julius is ahead of his time. Meanwhile, the president of Namibia, Her Excellency, the realest of them all, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, has rejected a proposal from the Gates Foundation to conduct trials of a hormonal intrauterine device designed to prevent pregnancy up to 8 years in Namibia. It's this the pill that prevents pregnancy for 8 years that Kenya just accepted. Namibia has rejected that trial. Now, in her statement, she says that Namibia is a nation with a modest population of over 3 million. And if any country should consider measures to curb the population, it should be the United States with a population of over 300 million. Any attempt to hinder the growth of human potential would be a great injustice to the country of Namibia. Yes, queen. Yeah, she's a baddie. She's a fairy with a fatty, and I'm here for it. Yeah? Anyone that needs to curb the population needs to be the United States. Why aren't these trials, practiced in the United States? Why aren't they going through in the United States? Why don't they test on the population of the United States? What is this obsession with Africa? What is this thing? What do you want from Africa? You are obsessed. What do you want? If it's not our minerals, it's our bodies, it's disease. What do you want from us? Why is there such a deep obsession with limiting birth rate in Africa and not anywhere else? Why are billions of dollar solutions never about clean water, food security, or education, but always about who gets to reproduce? They want a smaller Africa. They want something that they can manage. If anything, this should tell us that a united Africa is more deadlier than any weapon of mass destruction. Yes! Yes, I said it. They keep telling on themselves. Them folks, the white supremacists, they keep telling on themselves. I mean, why would you want to prevent pregnancy for 8 years in Africa? Why? Because you know that a united nation of Africa is more deadlier than any weapons of mass destruction, and you can't stand it. You keep telling on yourself that indeed we are inferior. Indeed, our DNA is inferior and it's failing us, and we can't fathom how superior black people are. So what do? We need to curb them, control them. We need to feed them the perception that we can still manage them. But in reality, you are not, and God keeps clocking your tea. What do you think about this segment? I know I am happy. What do you think about this segment? Don't forget to like and share the broadcast. Don't forget to comment to us. Give us your views. We love to hear from you. And finally, I do have a YouTube channel of my own. It's called The Native Talk, where we dissect everything African diaspora, everything that affects the Black community across the globe. I am on it. I am unfiltered. I am raw. I say things that I can't say on this platform because we are a very uniform and respectable platform, but on my channel, I'm raw, unfiltered, and to a certain extent, I am very disrespectful, and I know that you appreciate my raw, unfiltered commentary. So head over to the Native Talk. The link is in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and help me grow my community. And one day, you can come and travel with me in South Africa as we explore the diverse background. Are you in?
Now, I want to hold it here. I just came across a Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and he has a quote. I was just trying to find it again, but the essence of it is that this white man, this white woman, this white boy, this white girl, they're not capable of being civil. We tried to civilize these animals 3 times. In Egypt, once in Greece and Rome, and out of Spain when we ruled it for 1,000 years. They are totally disagreeable. There's no way, no shape, no how, no nothing that they can say, that they can do, that they can fabricate to make them more sustainable, I guess, more tolerable. These people absolutely cannot live with anybody in a civil manner. And so Khalid Muhammad said, fuck it. And I say that too. Muhammad Ali said that too. And a lot of our famous people said that too. And our ancestors said that. So what we're going to get into is the fact that Africa now, if you look back at some of the other videos that I've done, are in the mode of reparation. $777 trillion. And they're not playing around. It's very easy to get that money. For the simple fact that now the U.S. of A, the United States of Africa, is now united. The Berlin Conference was an error on their part that was never given any reparation. The black people in America, and the list goes on and on. Let's look at how the United States of Africa is dealing with this right now, and they're not playing.
Emergency. Racist attacks on Africans abroad. One Africa sends shock warning to Europe. By Takunda Mavika, Supreme Africa Breaking News. Tisu Banhubacho. This is not just a report. This is a cry from the soul of a continent. In a story developing faster than international headlines can catch up, the African Union has issued a classified diplomatic warning to several European governments after a disturbing rise in violent and discriminatory attacks against African nationals across major European cities. The message? Africa will no longer remain silent. Let's unpack this emotional, political, and international earthquake from the streets of Paris and Berlin to the chambers of the AU. Part 1. A wave of violence. Over the last 3 months, reports have surged of Africans being violently targeted in France, Italy, Germany, Poland, and the UK. The incidents range from verbal abuse to brutal beatings, unlawful detentions, housing discrimination, and in at least 2 confirmed cases, murder. In Berlin, a Nigerian student was stabbed outside a train station after being called racial slurs. In Naples, a Ghanaian street vendor was beaten by a mob of football fans during a public celebration, with police reportedly watching without intervening. In Paris, a Congolese woman was denied emergency medical services after being told, "You people abuse our hospitals." These stories are not isolated. They are part of a growing, dangerous pattern, and Africa is watching. Part 2. The AU's official warning. In an emergency closed-door session, AU diplomats voted unanimously to issue a formal continental-level alert against what they call hostile treatment of African citizens abroad. The alert was sent to France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, the United Kingdom. According to our insider chairman Shadow, the AU's Department of Political Affairs and Security has threatened to review all bilateral diplomatic treaties with countries where African nationals are systematically targeted with no recourse to justice. A portion of the leaked memo reads, open quote, "We will not allow the children of Africa to be hunted like animals while we shake hands with those responsible. There must be justice or there will be consequences." Close quote. Part 3, social media on fire. Within hours, the AU's move went viral across an X, formerly Twitter, with hashtags like Protect Africans Abroad, Africa is Watching, Justice for Adama, One Africa Warning. A viral video of an Ethiopian man in Poland crying after being beaten by neo-Nazis is now being reshared with captions like, "If this was a European in Africa, CNN would be camped outside." Afrobeat artists, Pan-African activists, and even some African footballers playing in Europe have joined the outrage, releasing emotional posts calling for accountability from host governments, legal support for victims, permanent AU embassies with protection powers. Part 4, the human cost. Meet Adama Soumahoro, a 27-year-old Burkinabe construction worker living in Marseille, France. Last week, he was found unconscious in an alley after being assaulted by 3 men who allegedly screamed, "Go back to your jungle." He now lies in a coma. His mother, speaking from Bobo Dioulasso, broke down in tears live on TV. Open quote, "I sent my son to build a life. I never thought I would bury him from afar." Close quote. Unfortunately, her pain is shared by too many African families watching their loved ones be reduced to statistics in foreign lands. Part 5, AU's 3 demands to Europe. In the same confidential document, the AU reportedly made 3 non-negotiable demands to affected European governments. 1, public condemnation of racist violence. Not just general statements. They want each government to name and condemn attacks on Africans specifically. 2, prosecution of perpetrators. A database of ongoing cases involving African victims is being compiled, and the AU will publish a scorecard of how many have seen justice. 3, independent monitoring system. The AU is proposing an African Citizens Abroad watchdog office with diplomatic presence in key European cities. Powered to file direct reports. If these demands are not met within 90 days, the AU has hinted at targeted diplomatic and trade consequences. Part 6, Europe's response so far. The initial European response has been, let's say, diplomatic but dismissive. France issued a vague statement. Open quote, "We condemn all forms of racism, xenophobia, and intolerance in our society." Close quote. The UK said, open quote, "We are committed to ensuring the safety of all people living in the UK, regardless of race or nationality." Close quote. But as AU insiders point out, no country has directly acknowledged the wave of African-specific attacks. They're treating this like background noise, one AU official said, but they'll hear us now. Part 7, diaspora in fear. African students, workers, and families across Europe are now living in fear. In Brussels, a Kenyan nurse reportedly quit her job after being followed and threatened. In Athens, Zimbabwean migrant workers have gone into hiding after police raids targeted their neighborhoods. And in Paris, a Ugandan pastor was evicted after his landlord cited community discomfort. It's a silent purge, one that Africans in Europe say has become psychologically violent and physically dangerous.
Hold on.
Part 8, why now? The big question is, why is this wave happening now? Some believe it's tied to global anti-immigrant sentiment. Others believe African economic and political rising power is triggering backlash. One political analyst told SAN, open quote, "When Africa was weak and begging, they gave us crumbs. Now that we're organizing AfroGold, AfroNet, One Africa government, they fear us." Close quote. So now, the sons and daughters of the continent are being targeted, not for what they've done, but for what Africa is becoming. Part 9, the the One Africa government's response. A commission officials have reportedly escalated the matter to the African Union's Transitional Executive Council for urgent action. And according to insiders, the One Africa government has formed a rapid legal defense fund, a multi-million-dollar program to pay for African victims of abuse abroad. This fund will hire top human rights lawyers across Europe, launch civil lawsuits against cities or police departments, sponsor awareness campaigns in native languages. An early campaign slogan: you touch one, you touch us all. Part 10. If we don't protect our own, who will? That's the question activists are now asking in cities across Africa. At the University of Lagos, students held a vigil for Africans attacked abroad. In Nairobi, the One Africa Student Council has called for an African Identity Week, promoting pride, justice, and economic independence. In Accra, church leaders gave sermons titled "The Dignity of the African Soul." This moment is no longer just about stopping racism. It's about claiming full dignity. Part 11. We built their cities. They burn our lives. A viral spoken word video by a young Togolese poet sums it all up. Open quote. We built their railways. We cleaned their offices. We healed their sick. But when they see us walking proud in their streets, they panic. Why? Because they know what's coming. Africa's back. Close quote. It ends with the line, next time you raise a fist at one of us, be ready to answer to 55 nations. Part 12. Final word. Time to choose sides. To our African brothers and sisters in Europe, we see you. You are not alone. To the European governments turning a blind eye, that time is ticking. Either you protect Africans, or Africa will protect itself. And to the people watching this video across the continent, now is the time to stand up. Smash that like button if you believe no African should fear for their life abroad. Subscribe to stay ahead of the truth. Comment below. Should the African Union recall ambassadors from countries that allow racist attacks? Tisu Banhu Bacho. One Africa, one voice, one fight. Let the world know. The era of silence is over.
I just found a quote. Khalid Muhammad, he was on the Donahue show, and he said the white race is absolutely positively disagreeable to get along with in peace. No other people on the face of the earth have been able to get along with white people since white people have been on our planet. Case closed. We don't need to think about this for too long over time. We already know. And like this gentleman said on his YouTube channel, SABN, white people just attacking black people and getting away with it. And sooner than you know, Shaka Unit Zulu, they're going to be sniping these motherfuckers. I kid you not. This is what I see. And I would not be amazed if they come out and start killing President Macron and his man wife and anybody else for that matter. It's on and popping, you got it. Enough is enough. You just start killing. That's all. Now, this one there with European Union threatens sanctions. African Union responds with mass asset seizures. We're talking about trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars. Imagine trillions of dollars. And America, Europe, France, whoever, they're not able to do a motherfucking thing about it. Let's keep it moving.
Breaking. European Union threatens sanctions. African Union responds with mass asset seizures as tensions keep rising. By Takunda Mabika. Tisu Banhu Bacho. This is not fear. This is not begging. This is the rise of one Africa. And today, the West just blinked first. Part 1. SIBN warned you this was coming. If you've been watching SIBN from day one, then you already know we've been tracking these developments like hawks. Our insiders told us early this year that Europe and America were preparing silent retaliation for Africa's shift towards self-reliance. We warned you when the African Union started freezing certain Western financial movements tied to Afro-gold manipulation. We exposed the quiet war on digital gold transfers that almost disrupted the pilot programs in Zimbabwe and Kenya. And when the Continental Revenue Authority seized mining assets from European companies in Mali and Tanzania earlier this year, we told you clearly, the West is not going to take Africa's independence lying down. Well, today, the threats are no longer whispers. The European Union just made its first big move. Part 2, the secret sanctions threat. According to multiple insiders within the EU's Department of Economic Sovereignty, a confidential EU delegation has been moving quietly across Africa over the past 3 weeks, not to offer partnership, not to invest, but to warn. In private meetings held in Nairobi, Lagos, Addis Ababa, and Kigali, the EU reportedly warned top African economic ministers and heads of state that any further rollout of Afrogold or attempts to bypass traditional Western financial systems could trigger a list of retaliatory actions. These included a freeze on trade licenses with Europe, withdrawal of European investors from major infrastructure projects, and even private sanctions against AU officials involved in the Afrogold coordination team. These were not public statements. No press conference, no tweet. These were whispered threats, passed in corridors, signed in non-disclosure documents, and leaked to TESAN by those who know the continent deserves better. But what the EU did not expect is what happened next. Part 3.
Visa el verano con las nuevas sandalias de Temu Forever de $200. Están hechas.
AU responds with fire. The African Union, already 2 steps ahead, was not caught off guard. In fact, by the time the EU delegation landed in Addis Ababa last week, asset seizures had already begun. SABN has confirmed through insider sources that over 70 EU-linked companies operating within African borders have now been placed under immediate audit. These companies range from mineral extraction firms in West Africa to agricultural export depots in SADC. Some have already had their bank accounts frozen. Others had on-site visits from AU tax officials, escorted by military units from the Continental Economic Protection Division. The move was not announced. It was executed. In Rwanda, a logistics center tied to a French firm mysteriously shut its doors with trucks unable to move. In Senegal, one of the EU's fisheries monitoring stations was seized and handed to local maritime authorities. In Namibia, 2 European-owned diamond transit warehouses have been sealed by AU regulators. This is not protest. This is strategy. Part 4, the legal hammer. Afrogold Law 3.4. All of this is legally supported by the new Afrogold Economic Integrity Law, Clause 3.4. This law, which went into effect as part of the 2025 Addis Security Convention, mandates that all international companies operating within Africa must declare in-continent gold reserves if they wish to transact above 5 million Afrogold units. They must also migrate their payment systems to Afrogold-compatible rails and agree to share tax and audit data with the newly established Continental Treasury Authority. Multiple EU companies failed to comply, or rather, refused to. Instead, they tried to reroute funds through shell subsidiaries in Mauritius and Dubai. That triggered the latest seizures. These are not random acts. These are coordinated moves under a united framework designed to defend African economic sovereignty. Part 5. Shadow Unit Zulu deployed. Let's be very clear. The AU is not only using tax regulators. SABN has confirmed that elite elements of Shadow Unit Zulu have now been deployed to monitor digital corridors across the continent. Their job is to trace suspicious European-linked transfers, hidden cryptocurrency movements, and companies attempting to convert stolen African wealth into external currencies. According to Protocol Black, several hard drives were already seized from EU-backed fintech platforms in Ghana, Angola, and South Africa. These contain troves of internal emails detailing how executives plan to bypass Afrogold compliance systems. Let that sink in. Africa is no longer begging for fair play. Africa is enforcing the rules. Part 6. Insider reactions. The streets are laughing. Chairman Shadow told SABN in confidence that the AU is not surprised by the sanctions threat. He described it as the tantrum of a system that once had unchecked access to African wealth and now sees the gates closing. He confirmed that African leaders were given intel weeks ago, suggesting the EU would try to frame Afrogold as a destabilizing force to African economies, a move that has now been neutralized by exposing Europe's own dependency on African raw materials. Mama Pan Africa added that while European leaders may call these moves retaliatory, they are simply overdue. According to her, it is not revenge. It is called accounting. Meanwhile, The Economist of Addis reports that a new Afrogold foreign trade calculator is being tested by the AU's internal finance unit, one that may soon allow African exporters to completely bypass SWIFT systems when dealing with Eastern nations. Let the old world tremble.